Well, what we're talking about here, folks, is two entirely different types of wine. The Bible speaks about two entirely different things when it talks about wine. For example, one type of wine mentioned in the Bible is a fermented alcoholic beverage which causes intoxication and has caused untold harm in our society. But the same Bible talks about another type of wine that's mentioned as a non-alcoholic grape juice, which is always associated with healthy blessing of the harvest and prosperity from the Lord. And I'm going to prove this to you tonight, because the problem is sometimes when you look at secular sources, current secular sources, they don't seem to see it that way. For example, if you look at this particular dictionary, it does not make any reference to unfermented wine. Matter of fact, under the heading of wine, it says it's fermented grape juice containing varying percentages of alcohol together with ethers and esters that give it bouquet and flavor. Another definition is the fermented juice of a plant product used as a beverage. And the third one is something that invigorates or intoxicates. Now, I want you to note that there's no mention in this current dictionary that makes any reference to the possibility of unfermented grape juice. And this is obviously one of the reasons why most people have a problem with that. However, all you have to do is go back 55 years ago, and one of the more popular dictionaries back then defines wine this way: the fermented juice of the grapes. In loose language, the juice of the grape, whether fermented or not. Now, I think it's interesting, 55 years ago, the common use of the word wine could be fermented or not fermented. Even in 1971, when Webster's came out with their dictionary, they defined must this way. It says wine or juice, now listen to this, pressed from the grapes but not fermented. And I want you to notice that according to this definition, it associates wine with non-fermented grape juice. If you go all the way back to 1896, Webster's dictionary defines it this way: the expressed juice of the grape, whether fermented or unfermented. Now here we are in 2009, and you don't hear that definition. But it not only is in the dictionaries, and it's not only in current, 50, 60, 100 years ago. If you trace history back, starting, say, about 20, 30 years ago, and go back throughout history, secular sources all referred to a fermented and a non-fermented wine. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you that there is a distinct difference in the Scriptures. Everybody with me, by the way? Okay, this is going to be very important, because really what we're going to do tonight, we're going to lay the foundation, because it's important that we all are on the same base here. Now, so here's what I want you to do, and this is where you might want to get your pen out real quickly. I'm going to give you several examples of passages that emphatically refer to wine, but I want you to notice that it is associated and with what we've talked about already, the blessings of God upon the fruit of the earth, the crops and the harvest. Notice each one of these verses as they talk about the blessings connected with corn or wheat or the olive oil and even with the flock. It's put right in the middle of all that. Okay? Now, let me give you some examples. And the first time we find in Genesis chapter 27, when Isaac is blessing Jacob, and one of the statements that Isaac says, he says, "Therefore God give thee the dew of the heaven, the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine." Notice there is an association with the produce. Now, as we go on, we're going to find this repeatedly referred to. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 13, talking about God's love. It says, "And he will love thee and bless thee and multiply thee. He will also bless the fruit of thy womb." Notice that all this is talking about the blessings. Now watch what happens. "And the fruit of thy land, thy corn, and thy wine, and thine oil, and the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep, in the land which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee. Now notice the association with wine with the produce of the land. Okay? In Deuteronomy 11:14 it says, that will I give you in the rain of your land, in his due season, in the first rain, and in the latter rain. Now watch this. That thou mayest gather, now watch this, gather in thy corn and thy wine and thine oil. So what are they talking about here? What's the Lord talking about? Well, He's talking about that you're going to gather in, or you're going to harvest wine, even though, folks, look at this. When they go out, they gather in the grapes. Is this alcohol that He's talking about? It says wine. And if you've come to the conclusion every time the Bible talks about wine, then you think that this is referring to somehow an alcoholic drink. He's not talking about. He's calling this thing wine. Now, stick with me. Let me give you another verse. Deuteronomy 14:23. Thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which He shall choose to place His name there. Talking about Israel. The tithe of thy corn and of thy what? Wine, and thine oil. Notice again, it's always associated with harvest time. And the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. What he's referring to here is an offering of the first fruits. For example, here in Numbers 18, verse 12. All the best of the oil, talking about the olive oil. See, when you hear oil, you think, well, that's 10W30. No, it's not. It's talking about olive oil. And the same thing here. It says the best of the oil, and all the best of the wine, and of the wheat, and the first fruits of them which they offer unto the Lord, them have I given thee. So here we're finding the word wine as it's associated with other produce that's coming from the field during the harvest time. Are you hearing this? Okay, now stick with me. 2 Chronicles 31:5. As soon as the commandment came abroad, the children of Israel brought in abundance the first fruits of the corn, wine, and the oil, and the honey, and all the increase of the field. The word first fruits is shown that they brought them the very first crop, the harvest that first came forth. Now, anybody with any sense would know that's not talking about alcohol. That's talking about grape juice. Grapes. Okay, stick with me. In Psalms chapter 104, verse 14, He causes the grass to grow and the cattle and the herb of the service for man. This is the verse we start off with tonight. That He may bring forth food out of the earth, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face to shine, and bread or wheat which strengtheneth man's heart. Now see, you say, well, John, why are you talking about this? Because, folks, in every single one of these cases, it's clearly referring to the produce that comes off of the vine, that comes as a result of the harvest time out of the earth. Jeremiah 31, verse 12. Therefore, they shall come and sing in the height of Zion, and shall flow together to the goodness of the Lord. For, now watch this. Now, notice the association. For wheat, and for wine, for oil, for the young of the flock and of the herd. And their soul shall be a watered garden, and they shall not sorrow any more at all. So far we've seen example after example. Let me just give you a couple more. Joel chapter 2. Then will the Lord be jealous for His land, and pity His people. Yea, the Lord will answer and say unto His people, Behold, I will send you corn, and wine, and oil. Now right there, what is He referring to? He's referring to the produce of the earth, which is the direct result of the blessings of God. And you shall be satisfied therewith, and I will no more make you to be a reproach among the heathen. This is obviously, by the way, prophecy. Now again, I want you to take note that each of these verses refer to the harvest of wheat, olive oil, and other crops in the same sense that it's referring to the harvest vine, the grapes, and yet it's called wine. Even though there is absolutely no way that there could be alcohol in that harvest. You understand that?